Hey you guys, it's Destiny back here with another video, and you're watching the Decimania channel here on YouTube. Today I've got a DVD review for you guys. This is actually one that needed to redo because I didn't like the background noise that was in it, and I just kind of came across as kind of nervous in the last one that I did, so I just deleted it. And we're going to try to redo this again. So today we have Breaking the Code, Behind the Walls of Chris Jericho DVD. This is probably my favorite one out of the... I don't know. I liked The Road to Jericho. I liked that one pretty good with the match compilation. But this one's pretty good too. I'm not really sure which one of these I like better. The Road to Jericho has more matches, I believe, but this one has a very good documentary and all that stuff. I'm not going to show you the disc art or anything, but I don't know. Here's a slip cover. And then here's the DVD itself. I guess there's Jericho on the front. Back, you can read there if you want. Here's the spine. Sorry, I'm kind of winded today, but it is what it is. There's the inside of it. Like I said, I'm not going to show you disc art or anything. It's just kind of pointless, really, because I can't see what's on the discs themselves. And maneuver this back in here. There we go. So this is a very good documentary. It's about 2 hours. But please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss any new content. I will not be uploading anything new for a while. Unless I can find the energy at the time, because my daughter is literally, well, actually, by the time this is up, she'll be here. So, yeah. So it starts off kind of just talking about Chris's childhood, and, you kind of get the sense that he grew up pretty good, like, his mom and dad were very supportive of him and stuff. His mom was not interviewed for this. She has passed away. It was in 2005, I believe. And his dad was interviewed for this. They showed some like home video footage, I believe, of him just playing outside and stuff like that. Doing normal kid stuff. And he talks about being like, I don't know, 7 or 8 maybe, and he was with his grandma and he was watching wrestling with her, and he also wanted to be in a band. So look at that, he's doing both literally today. It's incredible, actually. So he starts watching like the AWA and stuff like that, and then he watches Stampede Wrestling. Talks about having a band in high school and playing at his house and stuff. And they went to one of their first concerts. Him and his friends was a Metallica concert, which I would love to go see them at some point. But then he sees this ad when he's watching Stampede Wrestling, and he sees an ad for a training school for the training school down there. But he couldn't join till he was like 18, so he took a year of journalism, I believe, or something. I think I'm getting that right. I'm not sure, but it took like a year of radio broadcasting or journaling or something like that. I don't remember. It was either him or Edge that did that. Maybe it was both. But eventually he gets into wrestling, walks into the training camp, and that's when he meets Lance Storm. And Lance Storm is interviewed for this. And Lance Storm, he's like, every one of these guys that walked in there I saw were either out of shape or just not built right or something. And then Jericho walked in and he's like, oh, thank you so much, because Jericho looked athletic and all that stuff. And so they became friends. They actually had their first match against each other in October of 1989. Was it? It's either 89 or 90. I think it was 90. I believe so. But, they're wrestling all over Calgary and stuff like that. And then they go to Mexico for about 2 years and work there and work the different styles. The Mexican style. Then they went to Germany, where they basically performed in front of the crowd, the same crowd, for 6 weeks, every night. He goes to Smoky Mountain Wrestling and all that stuff, and learns how to cut promos. He says it's interesting because every place he worked, he learned something different. He learned in Mexico about all the different styles and stuff of wrestling, and he learned how to cut a promo in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He learned how to adapt his style in Germany so that the fans wouldn't expect the same moveset every night. In Japan, he learned about the technical wrestling stuff. And it's a shame too, because they didn't talk that much about his Japan run. But I'm sure if the Benoit tragedy hadn't happened, he would have talked about that feud. It's a shame because they left a lot of stuff off of this documentary because of what happened with Chris Benoit. But then he gets a call to go to ECW, and he works with Cactus Jack and Taz. He even wins that was the first time he won a championship on American soil. Won the ECW television title. I think I have a couple matches on a couple of the ECW DVDs with him with it. But then Eric Bischoff, he sees him at a show and he hires him to WCW. He starts as a babyface and all that stuff, and then he said, I think Terry Taylor it was. He came up to Chris one night in, I think it was Augusta, Georgia, and he was like, hey, what's up? And Terry's like, your career. And he goes, what? And he's like, yeah, you're turning heel tonight. And Jericho's like, about freaking time. So he goes from being a babyface to a heel. And, then he starts just saying all these random things. Like, he'd give 30 minutes or 30 seconds to say whatever he wanted to after his matches. And he would just say the most outlandish freaking crap. He would talk about different bands and stuff like that. It had nothing to do with what the match was about or anything like that. He was just basically doing it to amuse himself and stuff. But, yeah, then he did the feud with Dean Malenko and the 1004 holds. I like how he just reads them off, like that promo on Nitro. He's just reading them off, and then they get a commercial break, and they come back, and he's still reading them. And, yeah. That was a fun feud. And then they did the Jericho conspiracy theory thing with Dean Malenko, where he's, like, in Washington, D.C., going around all these different places, trying to get people to buy into his conspiracy theory. Like, Jericho was so entertaining back then. Like, he's he was just good. And then I don't think he talked about Ralphus. I don't think he had the Jericho personal security thing going. They didn't really talk about his feud with Chavo. They didn't really talk about any of his major feuds in WCW except for the Goldberg one and the Dean Malenko one, which Goldberg, that one just sent him. That kind of was it for him. So I guess they did this thing where he called out Goldberg. And, Goldberg wasn't really happy with it because in his mind he was like, why does he need to beat me? Or why is he going to do this? Make me look like a fool? And in Jericho's mind it was, oh, why are you, I'm not writing this stuff. I'm just trying to make this work with what I'm given. And, I don't think they ever did the match, and then Jericho basically just goes to WWE. That debut was freaking awesome. And he said he was in a post office, and he saw, the big poster that said, Countdown to the New Millennium, and he's like, oh, that could be a way for somebody to debut in WWE. That could be me. And they had that big clock on the Tron or something, and he, interrupted The Rock. And then he kind of was just floundering there for a couple months. He feuded with Ken Shamrock and stuff. And then he feuded with Chyna and won the Intercontinental title. Remember, they were co-champion at one point, which I did not like. I wish Jericho would just beat her for it. I mean, that's just me. But, yeah, then they talk about him kind of winning the WWE title from Triple H for about 20 minutes, and then he had to give it back because of Earl Hebner reversing the decision. Kind of talks about that. They couldn't get into his tag team title win with Benoit or his Intercontinental title feud, which sucks because those are very good things that he did in the company. It's a shame that he did what he did. Because there's a lot of good stuff that they left off of this DVD. I'm sure there would have been a couple of Chris Benoit matches on here. Actually, I don't think I've seen any matches besides the Royal Rumble match that they had for the Intercontinental title at the 2001 Royal Rumble. I don't think I've seen any of their other matches on DVD. I haven't even seen their tag team title match on DVD, which that could be on something, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I think it's on Triple H's DVD, maybe one of them. But I don't know. There's just so many good things that they skipped over, or that they had to. They get into his undisputed title win against The Rock and Stone Cold and all that stuff, and then they also get into just how good of a wrestler he is and how adaptive he is and stuff. Get into his feud with Triple H and his feud with Stephanie and chemistry with Stephanie, and then he kind of talks about his, they talk about his feud with Triple H, and he says, Hogan and Rock should have been the main event. Which I kind of agree with. I mean, I kind of think Jericho and Triple H should have been the main event just because for the title. But then again, I guess there have been non-title matches that have main evented. I think the crowd was just so burnt out because of The Rock and Hogan. They were having so much fun during that Jericho and Triple H kind of suffered in the main event because the crowd was kind of dead. Maybe, but talked about his feud and tag team with Christian, which I remember watching the WrestleMania 20 DVD when I first got it, and it had their WrestleMania match on there, which I thought was very good. And then he gets into kind of leaving, facing John Cena. He puts John Cena over in the DVD, talking about how good John Cena is. And then he there's a lot on this DVD. I'm trying to get through everything that I can. They had the match at SummerSlam, and the people were just cheering for Jericho, too, because I think they started to really respect him, even though he was a heel. And then on Raw the next night, they had the You're Fired match with John Cena and Chris Jericho again for the WWE title, and Eric Bischoff fired him. And people were coming up to him going, oh man, they fired you, why'd they do that? And Jericho's like, no, that's how I want to go out. Like, I don't want to go out as a hero, like, I want to go out kicking and screaming. And he talks about kind of going home and doing some other projects, and he doesn't really talk about his family life that much. I don't know, maybe, I don't know, but talks about Fozzy, getting them going, getting them off the ground and on the map, and talks about he talks about writing his first book, A Lion's Tale, which is very good. If you want to go check it out, it's on Audible. But he talks about watching John Cena and Shawn Michaels, their match. I think it was on WrestleMania, or it was on the Raw, or one of the Raw matches after, where they had that, like, 1 hour long match. And he talks about that, and he's like, I'm ready to come back. So he comes back on the November 19th episode of Raw. I think Randy Orton was in the ring for that segment. Yeah, he was. And he kind of just talks about his character change and how he started wearing suits. He started cutting his hair short and kind of started talking slower, using all these big words. He talked about his reignited feud with Shawn Michaels, which was one of the best that year. I remember kind of hearing about that and being like, oh wow, okay. I didn't get to watch it till years later on the network and stuff, but kind of sucks because I wanted to do a review for that feud, and now I have to go and try to find it again because they're taking all of the freaking content off of Peacock next year, and I can't get an ESPN. But talks about his feud with Rey Mysterio and the Mask and Intercontinental title, which was very good. I don't think he talked about inventing the Money in the Bank ladder match. I don't think he did, but talks about his feud with Rey Mysterio. He talks about his feud with Edge, kind of, and then he kind of just goes into how he met, like, Wade Barrett and all that stuff. So what happened during the Edge feud, I actually remember this. This is when I was really getting into it. So Edge and Jericho had won the tag team titles from, I think it was Carlito and Primo, maybe. And then Edge ended up getting hurt or something. He tore his Achilles tendon at a live event with Jeff Hardy, I think, if I remember correctly. And then he basically blamed Edge for getting injured or something, Jericho did. And then he came back 6 months later, and they had their match at WrestleMania, which I was very much looking forward to. I wanted Edge to win the title from him that year, because Jericho won the Elimination Chamber. I think it was Undertaker was the champion. Was that the freaking year that Undertaker got set on fire or something like that by the pyro or something? He was very upset about that, which rightfully so. Like, he told him to not freaking do it that way, and he did. The pyro guy, but whatever. He got fired, I think. Undertaker saw to that. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of how they end the documentary, with him kind of talking about Wade Barrett. And he kind of talks about just how what his career means to him, really, at the end. And it kind of is like that for the end. If I missed anything, I apologize. There was so much on this freaking DVD. Which, I'm going to talk about the Shawn Michaels feud for a second. You know, that's got to be cool for Jericho, like, because he idolized Shawn growing up. You know, imagine teaming up with your hero or whatever. You know, I wanted to team up with freaking Edge and all them. Like, I wanted to go to TNA and do announcing with Mike Tenay, or that would be cool. Or, like, that would be, like, me trying to go and do commentary with Jim Ross, because I think he's the greatest of all time at it. But I'll talk about the matches on here. There's a couple Fozzy music videos, a couple stories of how he got into the business. His name, when he was starting out, he wanted to be called Jack Action, which I thought was just funny. But let's talk about some of these matches. You have I think their debut match with Lance Storm. And then it's Lance Storm and Jericho against the Infernos in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, I believe. And then there's a match with Ultimate Dragon in New Japan. Or maybe it's All Japan. There's his ECW match with Cactus Jack. There's his Fall Brawl match with Eddie Guerrero for the Cruiserweight Championship. There's his Super Brawl match from 1998, Cruiserweight title versus Mask, Juventud Guerrero versus Chris Jericho. And then a match on Nitro against Dean Malenko. This is on disc 2, by the way. All these matches. They have his debut again with Rock. Interrupting Rock. They have his Intercontinental title match against Kurt Angle at No Way Out 2000. And then they have his you have a No Mercy match against The Rock for the WCW Championship. And then they have against Stone Cold Steve Austin at Vengeance 2001 for the undisputed WWE Championship. Disc 3. You got a match on SmackDown against Hulk Hogan. You got his WrestleMania 19 match against Shawn Michaels. You had the Loser Leaves Raw, or the You're Fired match on Raw with John Cena. You have his return in 2007. You got a great Intercontinental Championship ladder match on Raw in March of 2008 against Jeff Hardy. His No Mercy ladder match against Shawn Michaels for the World Heavyweight Championship is on here. There's a match against Rey Mysterio. I believe this is the Extreme Rules. I think it's like No Holds Barred or something. Yeah. And then you got a match on SmackDown against The Undertaker in 2009. And the match, the WrestleMania 26 match with Edge for the World Heavyweight title. And that's all the matches on here. So, that's pretty much the Chris Jericho Breaking the Code DVD in a nutshell. Sorry if I missed anything. But, yeah. It's a fun DVD to go back and watch. I'm a huge Chris Jericho fan. He's always entertained me. even when I didn't like him back when I started watching it. But yeah. Yeah, that's my Chris Jericho DVD review. Let me know what you guys thought of it, and I'll see you guys down the road. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Yeah. I'll see you guys later. Peace, and thank you for watching. God bless you.